Months turned into years, and humanity continued to adapt to its partnership with the architects. The changes brought by their technology were undeniable. Entire colonies flourished, diseases that once plagued settlers were eradicated, and travel between distant stars became faster and safer. Yet, despite these advancements, a sense of unease lingered beneath the surface. The architects' presence was always felt, their influence woven into every aspect of life like an invisible thread. Rachel Hayes remained at the forefront of humanity's efforts to navigate this delicate balance. She had become a symbol of resilience, her leadership guiding people through uncertainty. But even she couldn't ignore the growing whispers of discontent. Some settlers embraced the architects' gifts wholeheartedly, believing they were ushering in a golden age. Others grew increasingly wary, convinced that humanity was trading its soul for power. Dr. Alan Carter spent his days poring over data, searching for patterns in the architects' behavior. He worked alongside Emily Dawson, whose expertise in linguistics helped decode fragments of their language. Together, they uncovered subtle clues hidden within the transmissions, phrases that hinted at long-term consequences no one had anticipated. "It's like they're planting seeds," Alan said during one of their late-night discussions. "Seeds we don't fully understand." Emily nodded, her eyes shadowed with worry. "And those seeds could grow into something dangerous. We need to figure out what they really want before it's too late." Meanwhile, Marcus Lee focused on safeguarding humanity's autonomy. His team developed safeguards to ensure that any technology provided by the architects couldn't be used against humanity itself. They built firewalls, redundancies, and fail-safes into every system, creating layers of protection. But Marcus knew these measures might not be enough. The architects were ancient beings, their knowledge far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. If they truly wanted to take control, there was little anyone could do to stop them. One evening, as Marcus reviewed the latest updates from his team, he received an unexpected visitor, Rachel. She stepped into his workshop, her expression serious. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. Marcus gestured for her to sit. "What's wrong?" Rachel hesitated before speaking. "I've been thinking about the future. About what happens if we can't keep up with the architects. What if they decide we're not worth the effort anymore? Or worse, what if they see us as a threat?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "You think they'd turn on us?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But I can't shake the feeling that we're walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything we've built could come crashing down." Marcus nodded grimly. "That's why we need a backup plan, something they won't expect." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We disconnect. Completely. Cut off all ties with them and go dark." Rachel stared at him, stunned. "You're talking about severing the partnership altogether. Do you realize how risky that is? They'll come after us." "Maybe," Marcus replied. "But if we prepare properly, we might have a chance. We've learned enough from their tech to create our own systems they can't access. We build new colonies, ones they don't know about, ones they can't find." Rachel thought about it for a moment. It was a drastic idea, but it wasn't without merit. Humanity had always thrived under pressure, finding ways to survive even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Still, the stakes were higher than ever before. If they failed, the architects wouldn't just erase them. They'd make sure no trace of humanity remained. "We'd need time," Rachel said finally. "And resources. Lots of them." Marcus nodded. "I've already started working on prototypes. If we act quickly, we might be able to pull it off." The decision wasn't easy, but Rachel knew they had to act. She called an emergency meeting with her closest advisors, including Alan, Emily, and Marcus. Together, they hashed out the details of the plan. It would require secrecy, coordination, and sacrifices. But if successful, it could give humanity a fighting chance. Over the next several months, preparations began in secret. Teams worked around the clock to develop independent systems, power grids, communication networks, and transportation hubs that operated without reliance on the architect's technology. New colonies were established in remote regions of space, hidden behind nebulae and asteroid fields. Every precaution was taken to ensure that these settlements remained undetected. Despite their best efforts, however, keeping such a massive operation under wraps proved nearly impossible. Rumors spread among the settlers, sparking panic and division. Some accused Rachel and her team of betrayal, claiming they were abandoning the architect's vision. Others supported the plan, seeing it as humanity's only hope for true freedom. Amidst the chaos, the architects grew suspicious. Their messages became more frequent, their tone sharper. "Your actions concern us," one transmission read. "Progress falters when trust wavers." Rachel responded cautiously, assuring them that humanity was still committed to the partnership. Inside, though, she braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. It came sooner than expected. One night, alarms blared across Epsilon 9. Emergency lights flashed red as panicked voices filled the airwaves. The architects had discovered the hidden colonies, and they weren't pleased. Rachel rushed to the command center, where Marcus and Emily were already coordinating defenses. "How bad is it?" she asked, scanning the monitors. "Bad," Marcus replied grimly. "They've sent drones to investigate. If they find proof of our disconnection attempts, they'll shut us down completely." Rachel clenched her fists, her mind racing. "We need to buy ourselves time. Can we disable the drones?" Emily shook her head. "Not without revealing our position. If we attack, they'll know exactly where we are." "Then we evacuate," Rachel decided. "Get everyone to the nearest safe zone. We'll regroup and figure out our next move." The evacuation was chaotic but swift. Settlers scrambled onto ships, fleeing toward the hidden colonies. As the last vessel departed, Rachel stayed behind, ensuring no one was left behind. Only when she was certain everyone was safe did she board her ship and leave Epsilon 9 behind. From a distance, she watched as the architect's drones descended upon the station. They moved methodically, dismantling structures and erasing evidence of humanity's defiance. It was a sobering reminder of their power and their ruthlessness. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and her team regrouped in one of the hidden colonies. Life was difficult, resources were scarce, and morale was low, but for the first time in years, they felt free. Free from the architect's watchful eyes, free from the constant pressure to conform. Rachel stood on the edge of the settlement, gazing out at the unfamiliar stars. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: humanity had chosen its path. They had rejected the architect's offer of integration, opting instead for independence, even if it meant starting over from scratch. As she looked around at the faces of her fellow settlers, she felt a spark of hope. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout its history, yet it had always endured. This time would be no different. Together they would rebuild, explore, and thrive. Not as pawns in someone else's game, but as masters of their own destiny. And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, the architects watched silently, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The days following humanity's agreement with the architects were filled with both excitement and tension. News of the partnership spread across neighboring colonies and empires, sparking debates and speculation. Some saw it as a bold step forward, a chance for humanity to rise above its limitations and join the ranks of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Others viewed it with suspicion, fearing that the architect's intentions might not be as noble as they seemed. For Rachel Hayes and her team, however, there was no time to dwell on opinions or doubts. They had work to do. Back on Epsilon 9, preparations began in earnest. The ruling council tasked Dr. Alan Carter and Emily Dawson with leading efforts to decode more of the architect's technology and establish communication protocols. Marcus Lee worked tirelessly to interface the Eclipse's systems with the station's infrastructure, ensuring that any data shared by the architects could be safely integrated without causing disruptions. Meanwhile, Rachel coordinated security measures, knowing that such a monumental alliance would attract attention, both friendly and hostile. As weeks turned into months, progress was slow but steady. The architects provided fragments of their knowledge, revealing insights into energy manipulation, faster-than-light travel, and even methods for terraforming barren planets. Each discovery sparked wonder among the settlers, but it also raised questions. Why were the architects so willing to share? What did they gain from this partnership? And most importantly, what were they hiding? Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. She remembered Marcus's earlier warnings about inconsistencies in the architect's messages and the visions they had shown. While the benefits of the partnership were undeniable, she couldn't ignore the darker possibilities lurking beneath the surface. One evening, as Rachel walked through the station's observation deck, she found Emily Dawson staring out at the stars. Emily's face was pale, her eyes distant. Rachel approached cautiously, sensing that something was troubling her. "Everything okay?" Rachel asked gently. Emily hesitated before speaking. "I've been going over the data we've received," she said, her voice low. "There's something I didn't tell anyone." Rachel frowned. "What is it?" Emily sighed, turning to face her. "Some of the information doesn't match up. The architects keep showing us visions of thriving civilizations working alongside them, but when I analyze the data behind those images, I find traces of others, civilizations that disappeared entirely after accepting their offer." Rachel's stomach tightened. "Disappeared? How?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "Their records vanish completely. It's like they never existed. But there are echoes, remnants of their culture, their language, trapped within the architect's domain. It's almost as if—" She trailed off, unable to finish. "As if they became part of the architects themselves," Rachel finished for her. Emily nodded. "Exactly. And I'm starting to think that's what happens when you merge with them. You don't just evolve, you dissolve. You lose everything that makes you, you." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. If Emily was right, then the architect's promise of collaboration carried far greater risks than anyone had anticipated. Humanity wasn't just walking into a partnership, it was stepping onto a razor-thin line between growth and annihilation, determined to uncover the truth. Rachel called an emergency meeting with her team. Together, they reviewed Emily's findings and discussed possible next steps. Marcus suggested testing the architect's technology in controlled environments, isolating variables to see how they interacted with human systems. Dr. Carter proposed sending probes into uncharted regions of space, hoping to gather independent evidence of the architect's influence on other civilizations. But time was running out. The architects grew impatient, urging humanity to move faster. Their messages became more frequent, their tone shifting from curiosity to demand. "You delay," one transmission read. "Balance requires action. Hesitation invites stagnation." Rachel knew they couldn't stall forever. Yet, rushing blindly into the unknown felt equally reckless. She needed answers, and soon. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During routine scans of the Eclipse, Marcus discovered a hidden compartment deep within the ship's core. Inside, he found a small device similar to the one Rachel had encountered earlier, a map etched with glowing patterns. But this one was different. Its symbols pulsed faintly, as though alive. And when Marcus touched it, a flood of images overwhelmed him. He stumbled back, gasping for air as the visions unfolded in his mind. He saw worlds teeming with life, their skies painted with colors beyond imagination. He saw humans walking among the architects, their bodies aglow with radiant energy. But he also saw destruction, planets crumbling, stars collapsing, entire galaxies swallowed by darkness. And amidst it all, he saw the architects, their forms towering and serene, watching as civilizations rose and fell like waves on an endless shore. When the visions faded, Marcus collapsed to his knees, trembling. Rachel rushed to his side, helping him to his feet. "What did you see?" she asked urgently. Marcus took a deep breath, struggling to compose himself. "It's worse than we thought," he said hoarsely. "The architects, they're not just creators. They're curators. They guide species toward evolution, but when those species fail or resist, they erase them. Entire civilizations wiped clean, their essence absorbed into the architect's domain." Rachel's heart sank. This was the truth they had feared. The architects weren't offering partnership out of goodwill. They were conducting experiments, pruning the galaxy's inhabitants like gardeners shaping unruly plants. Humanity's choice wasn't between freedom and surrender. It was between survival and extinction. Armed with this knowledge, Rachel made a decision. She gathered her team and addressed them with unwavering resolve. "We can't trust the architects fully," she said, "but we also can't turn our backs on them. If we reject their offer outright, we risk becoming another failed experiment. Instead, we need to take control of our destiny. We'll use their technology to strengthen ourselves, not to merge with them, but to stand on equal footing." Her words resonated with the group. Together, they devised a plan. They would accept the architect's gifts selectively, using their advancements to bolster humanity's defenses while maintaining strict safeguards against full integration. At the same time, they would search for ways to counteract the architect's influence, ensuring that humanity retained its autonomy no matter what happened. When Rachel presented this strategy to the ruling council, it sparked heated debate. Some argued that defying the architects, even subtly, was too dangerous. Others supported Rachel's approach, believing it was the only way to protect humanity's future. In the end, the council voted in favor of proceeding cautiously, trusting Rachel's leadership. Months passed, and humanity began to change. With the architect's guidance, new technologies emerged: clean energy sources, medical breakthroughs, and interstellar travel methods that defied previous limitations. Settlements flourished and morale soared. Yet beneath the surface, vigilance remained. Teams led by Rachel, Dr. Carter, and Marcus continued studying the architect's methods, searching for weaknesses and preparing for the possibility of conflict. Then, one day, the architects sent a final message. "You have proven resilient," it read. "Your potential is vast. Continue to grow, and perhaps one day you will join us fully." Rachel read the transmission silently, her expression unreadable. She knew the architects hadn't given up on their ultimate goal, to absorb humanity into their domain. But for now, they had accepted humanity's independence, content to watch and wait. As she stood gazing out at the stars, Rachel felt a mix of pride and determination. Humanity had faced an impossible choice and chosen a third path, one defined not by fear or submission, but by courage and compromise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they would face them together, carving their own destiny among the cosmos. And so, the story of the missing Earth vessel became more than a tale of mystery. It became a testament to humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding desire to shape its own fate. The realm they entered was unlike anything Rachel Hayes or her team had ever experienced. It wasn't just a place. It felt alive, pulsing with energy and light. The air shimmered around them, filled with colors that shifted and danced like reflections on water. Floating structures hovered in the distance, their surfaces glowing faintly, as if powered by an inner fire. Between these constructs stretched vast fields of stars, swirling together in patterns too intricate to comprehend. Standing before Rachel and her team were the architects. Their forms towered above them, translucent and ever-changing. They didn't look solid, not in the way humans understood solidity. Instead, their bodies seemed made of liquid light, flowing and reshaping themselves constantly. Despite their size and otherworldly appearance, there was no sense of menace. If anything, their presence exuded calmness, even serenity. Yet, beneath that calm, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being studied, analyzed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. One of the architects moved closer, its form stabilizing slightly into something resembling a humanoid shape. Its voice resonated not through sound, but directly within their minds, deep and melodic. "You have come," it said simply, the words carrying weight far beyond their simplicity. Rachel stepped forward, her heart pounding. She had rehearsed what to say countless times, but now, standing face to face with beings capable of reshaping reality itself, she felt small and unprepared. Still, she forced herself to speak. "We've come to understand your offer," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "But we want to propose something different." The architect tilted its head, or at least, that's how it appeared. Its movements were fluid, hard to interpret. "Different?" it asked, curiosity evident in its tone. "Explain." Rachel took a deep breath. "We don't wish to lose ourselves, to surrender our individuality completely. We believe collaboration is possible without merging entirely. You can share your knowledge, and we will contribute ours. Together, we can create something new, something greater than either of us alone." For a long moment, the architects said nothing. Their forms flickered, as though communicating silently among themselves. Then one of them spoke again. "Your proposal intrigues us," it said. "Few who encounter us choose such a path. Most seek only power or fear losing control." "We are not like others," Rachel replied firmly. "Humanity values freedom. We want to grow, yes, but not at the cost of who we are." The architect paused, its light dimming slightly, as though considering her words. Finally, it responded. "Very well. Show us your potential. Prove that you are worthy of this partnership." Over the next several hours, or perhaps days, time felt distorted in this realm. Rachel and her team were shown visions of possibilities. The architects guided them through glimpses of futures both bright and dark. In one vision, humanity thrived alongside the architects, building cities of light and exploring corners of the universe previously thought unreachable. Knowledge flowed freely between species, creating advancements that solved problems once deemed insurmountable. In another vision, however, humanity faltered. Some civilizations accepted the architect's offer but lost themselves in the process, becoming echoes trapped within the architect's domain. Others rejected the partnership outright, retreating into isolation and paranoia, unable to adapt to the changes sweeping across the galaxy. These failures weighed heavily on Rachel's mind. Could humanity truly navigate this delicate balance? Or would they end up like so many others, consumed by ambition or fear? Dr. Alan Carter watched the visions intently, his expression thoughtful. "These aren't just examples," he murmured to Rachel during a brief pause. "They're warnings. The architects aren't offering perfection, they're showing us risks, real risks." Rachel nodded. "I know, but we have to try. Humanity has always been defined by its ability to adapt, to find solutions even when the odds seem impossible." As the visions continued, Marcus Lee noticed inconsistencies. He pointed out subtle details to the group. Flashes of destruction amidst the prosperity, hints of control hidden beneath the promises of freedom. "Something's off," he whispered to Emily Dawson, who stood beside him. "These futures, They feel incomplete, like pieces are missing. Emily frowned, nodding slowly. You're right. The architects aren't telling us everything. There's more to this deal than they're letting on. Despite their unease, the team pressed on, determined to learn as much as they could. Every vision revealed new layers of complexity, forcing them to confront difficult questions about trust, sacrifice, and identity. By the time the architects brought them back to the present moment, exhaustion weighed heavily on all of them. You have seen what lies ahead, one of the architects said, its voice echoing softly. What do you choose? Rachel exchanged glances with her team. Each of them carried doubts, fears, and hopes. But ultimately, the decision rested with her. Taking a step forward, she addressed the architects. We accept your challenge, she declared. But on our terms, we will work with you, learn from you, and contribute to this partnership equally. No surrender, no loss of self. The architects seemed intrigued by her response. For a moment, their forms shimmered brighter, as though pleased. Then, one of them extended a tendril of light toward Rachel. Agreed, it said. But remember, balance is fragile. Maintain it, and you may flourish. Fail, and you risk chaos. When the team returned to the eclipse, they found themselves back in familiar surroundings, the cold metal corridors, the hum of energy vibrating through the walls. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. The experience had changed them, leaving an indelible mark on their minds and hearts. As they prepared to leave the ship and return to Epsilon 9, Rachel couldn't help but reflect on what had happened. The architect's offer was both a gift and a test, a chance for humanity to prove itself capable of growth without losing its essence. Whether they succeeded or failed remained to be seen. Back on the station, news of their encounter spread quickly. People reacted with a mix of excitement, fear, and skepticism. Some hailed the decision as bold and visionary, while others saw it as reckless and dangerous. The ruling council convened yet again, debating the implications of the agreement. Through it all, Rachel remained resolute. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The architects weren't benevolent saviors. They were ancient entities with motives far beyond human understanding. But for the first time in a long while, Rachel felt hopeful. Humanity had been given a rare opportunity, an invitation to step into the unknown and carve its own destiny. And as she gazed out at the stars, she couldn't help but wonder, what would the future hold? The whispers from the eclipse grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just confined to the docking bay anymore. They echoed through the corridors of Epsilon 9, slipping into the minds of settlers and crew members alike. People began acting, strangely, distracted by thoughts they couldn't explain. Some claimed to hear their own names being called, while others reported vivid dreams of towering figures made of light, their forms shifting and shimmering like liquid stars. Rachel Hayes felt the pull, too. She tried to ignore it, focusing on her duties as commander, but the whispers lingered at the edges of her mind, soft yet persistent. It was hard to concentrate during meetings or even sleep at night. The station's ruling council had convened multiple times to discuss the situation, but no one could agree on what to do. Fear and uncertainty divided them. Dr. Alan Carter spent long hours in the lab with Emily Dawson, trying to decode the transmissions embedded within the ship's systems. The data was unlike anything they'd ever encountered, complex patterns that defied traditional analysis. But slowly, piece by piece, a clearer picture began to emerge. They're not just offering knowledge, Emily explained one evening, her voice tinged with both awe and unease. They're offering transformation, a way to evolve, to become something more. Alan frowned, rubbing his temples. Evolve how? And at what cost? Emily hesitated before answering. That part is still unclear, but based on what I've pieced together, they want us to merge with them, to share our consciousness. Alan stared at her, his face pale. You mean, lose ourselves? Not exactly, Emily said quickly. It's more like integration, becoming part of something greater, but... She trailed off, unable to finish. But what? Rachel asked, stepping into the room. She had overheard the conversation and couldn't stay silent any longer. Emily glanced at Rachel, then back at Alan. But there's a risk. If we accept, we might lose our individuality, our humanity. Rachel crossed her arms, thinking. So basically, they're asking us to gamble everything for a chance at, what, immortality, power? It's not just about power, Emily replied. From what I can tell, these beings, let's call them the architects, they see themselves as creators. They've helped civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy. Now, they're offering us the same opportunity. And if we say no? Rachel asked. Emily shook her head. I don't know. That's the part I haven't figured out yet, but I doubt they'll take rejection lightly. News of the architects' offer spread quickly, sparking heated debates across Epsilon 9. Some argued that accepting the proposal was humanity's destiny, a chance to ascend beyond their limitations and join the ranks of the galaxy's most advanced species. Others saw it as a trap, a way for the architects to manipulate and control them. Tensions ran high, and arguments erupted in public spaces, homes, and council chambers. Among those advocating caution was Marcus Lee, a seasoned engineer who had been tasked with studying the Eclipse's technology. He was a quiet man, known for his methodical approach to problem-solving, but lately he had grown increasingly vocal about his concerns. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the ship, Marcus told Rachel during one of their briefings. There's something off about them. The patterns are inconsistent, almost like interference. Inconsistent how? Rachel asked, leaning forward. Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. It's subtle, but it's there, like they're hiding something. Or maybe lying. Rachel frowned. You think the architects aren't being honest with us? I'm not saying that outright, Marcus replied. But we need to be careful. If we rush into this without fully understanding what we're getting into, we could end up regretting it. Rachel nodded, her expression grim. She trusted Marcus's judgment. He had a knack for spotting flaws others overlooked. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The whispers were growing stronger, more urgent, and the hum from the Eclipse now permeated every corner of the station. Whatever the architects wanted, they weren't going to wait forever. As the days passed, strange sightings became more frequent. Settlers reported seeing ghostly figures walking among them, their forms translucent and flickering like static on a screen. Some claimed the figures spoke to them, promising answers to questions they hadn't even asked. Others described feeling a deep sense of peace when near them, as though all their worries had vanished. One night, Rachel decided to investigate these claims herself. She walked through the station's dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing softly against the walls. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy she couldn't quite place. Then she saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the hallway, its outline blurred and indistinct. "Who's there?" Rachel called out, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it turned and moved down a side corridor, disappearing around a corner. Rachel followed, her heart pounding. When she reached the corner, the figure was gone. But in its place, she found a small device lying on the floor. It looked ancient, its surface etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the dark. Rachel picked it up cautiously, examining it closely. As soon as her fingers touched the surface, images flooded her mind, scenes of distant worlds, bustling cities built from light, and creatures unlike anything she'd ever imagined. Among them were humans, their bodies glowing with an inner radiance, working alongside the architects to create wonders beyond comprehension. But mixed in with the visions were darker images, worlds reduced to ash, civilizations crumbling under the weight of their own ambition. Rachel gasped, dropping the device as the visions faded. Her hands trembled as she stared at the object, unsure whether it was a gift or a warning. Back at the lab, Dr. Carter examined the device Rachel had brought him. His eyes widened as he studied the patterns etched into its surface. This is incredible, he murmured, turning it over in his hands. It's like a key, a map of sorts. A map to where? Rachel asked, watching him intently. To their domain, Carter replied. Wherever the architects reside. This device must have been left behind intentionally. A way for us to find them. Rachel frowned. And what happens if we go there? Carter hesitated. That's the question, isn't it? Do we trust them enough to follow? Before Rachel could respond, Marcus stepped forward. We should consider another option, he said firmly. What if we don't have to choose between accepting or rejecting their offer? What if we propose something different? Everyone turned to look at him. Like what? Rachel asked. Marcus took a deep breath. Collaboration without surrender. We work with them, learn from them, but maintain our autonomy. We don't give up who we are. We enhance it. The room fell silent as everyone considered his words. It was a risky idea, perhaps even naive, but it offered a middle ground. For the first time in days, Rachel felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was a way to navigate this situation without losing themselves entirely. The decision rested with Rachel and her team. After hours of deliberation, they agreed to present Marcus's proposal to the architects. But first, they needed to make contact, and that meant returning to the eclipse. The thought filled Rachel with dread, but she knew it was the only way forward. As they boarded the ship once again, the hum vibrated through their bones, louder than ever before. The glowing sphere in the engine room pulsed with anticipation, as though waiting for them. Rachel approached it cautiously, holding the device in her hand. We're ready, she said aloud, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Show us your world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the sphere flared brightly, enveloping the team in a blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a realm unlike anything they'd ever seen, a vast expanse filled with floating structures made of pure energy. Towering forms loomed above them, their shapes constantly shifting and changing. The architects had answered their call. The reappearance of the eclipse iron sent shock waves through Epsilon 9. People couldn't stop talking about it. News spread quickly, not just among the settlers, but also to neighboring colonies and even distant empires. Everyone wanted to know what had happened to the ship and why it had returned after so many centuries. Some were fascinated by the mystery, while others were terrified. Theories ranged from logical explanations to wild speculation, but no one had any real answers. Among those drawn to the story was Dr. Alan Carter, a historian who specialized in early human space exploration. He had spent most of his life studying old Earth ships and their journeys into the unknown. When he heard about the eclipse, he knew he had to be part of the investigation. For him, this wasn't just a chance to uncover the truth. It was an opportunity to rewrite history. Rachel Hayes welcomed Dr. Carter aboard the team. She respected his expertise and hoped his knowledge might shed light on the strange events surrounding the ship. Together with Lieutenant Sarah Bennett and a few other crew members, they began combing through the data recovered from the eclipse. Every detail mattered, no matter how small or insignificant it seemed. Dr. Carter started with the ship's logs. They were fragmented and incomplete, damaged by time and whatever catastrophic event had occurred aboard the vessel. But as he pieced them together, a clearer picture began to emerge. The logs revealed that the Eclipse had been on a routine mission, transporting supplies between Earth and one of its earliest colonies. Everything appeared normal at first, until the final entry. The crew reported seeing something, Dr. Carter explained during one of their meetings. They didn't describe it clearly, but they mentioned anomalies, strange readings, lights in the distance, then silence. "What do you think it means?" Rachel asked, leaning forward in her chair. Dr. Carter frowned, rubbing his temples. "I'm not sure yet, but there's more." He pulled up another section of the logs. Before the last entry, the captain wrote about altering course. They weren't heading toward their destination anymore. They were following coordinates outside known space charts. "Outside known charts?" Sarah repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "That doesn't make sense. There's nothing out there." "Exactly," Dr. Carter said, "which makes me wonder, did they find something? Or did something find them?" As the days passed, unsettling reports began surfacing among the settlers. People claimed to hear strange noises coming from the docking bay where the Eclipse was being held. At first, it was easy to dismiss as paranoia or overactive imaginations. After all, the ship was ancient and creepy enough without adding ghost stories to the mix. But then the sightings started. Workers assigned to guard the Eclipse reported seeing shadowy figures moving inside the ship when no one else was there. Others described hearing whispers, soft, indistinct voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Some even claimed the voices spoke directly to them, calling their names or asking questions they couldn't understand. When Rachel heard about these reports, she decided to investigate for herself. Late one night, she visited the docking bay alone. The area was eerily quiet, lit only by dim emergency lights. As she approached the Eclipse, she felt that same unease she'd experienced during her first visit, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, like unseen eyes watching her every move. She stepped closer, peering through the ship's windows. Inside, the corridors were dark, but she could swear she saw movement, flickers of shadows darting just out of sight. Her hand instinctively went to the weapon at her side, though she doubted it would do much good against whatever was lurking. Within, then she heard it, the whispers. Faint at first, almost blending with the hum of the station's systems. But as she stood there, frozen in place, the sound grew louder. It wasn't just random noise, it was language, layered and overlapping, spoken in tones both melodic and discordant. Try as she might, she couldn't make out any words, yet somehow she understood the message. "Come closer." Rachel backed away slowly, her heart pounding. Whatever was inside the Eclipse wasn't human, and it wanted her to know it was there. Back at the research lab, Dr. Carter made another discovery. Buried deep within the ship's archives were fragments of audio recordings, distorted. Conversations between the original crew members. They were difficult to decipher, but with some effort, he managed to piece together parts of the dialogue. They kept talking about the others, Dr. Carter told Rachel and Sarah during their next meeting. Whoever, or whatever they encountered, the crew referred to them as the others, and they weren't sure whether to trust them. Sarah frowned. What did these others want? "That's the strange part," Dr. Carter replied. "From what I can gather, they offered the crew something. Knowledge, power, maybe both. But the crew argued about whether to accept. Some thought it was too dangerous, while others believed it was worth the risk." Rachel leaned back in her chair, thinking. "So they made a deal?" "I don't think so," Dr. Carter said. "The recordings cut off before we learn what happened. But based on the condition of the ship, I'd say things didn't end well." Before they could discuss it further, an alarm blared through the station. Emergency lights flashed red, casting long shadows across the room. Rachel jumped to her feet, grabbing her communicator. "What's going on?" "It's the Eclipse," came the panicked reply. Power fluctuations are causing disruptions throughout the station. We're losing control of critical systems." Without hesitation, Rachel, Sarah, and Dr. Carter rushed to the docking bay. By the time they arrived, chaos had erupted. Workers scrambled to contain the situation as sparks flew from overloaded panels. The hum emanating from the eclipse had grown deafening, vibrating through the walls and shaking the floor beneath their feet. Rachel stared at the ship, her mind racing. Something was happening, something big. Whatever secrets the eclipse carried, they weren't staying hidden anymore. Later that evening, after the crisis had been contained, Rachel found herself sitting alone in her quarters. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The eclipse wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a harbinger of something greater, something that could change everything. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. She opened it to find Emily Dawson, a linguist who had been working tirelessly to decode the alien transmissions captured during the initial scans. Emily looked exhausted but determined. "I need to talk to you," Emily said, stepping inside. "About the whispers." Rachel closed the door behind her. "What about them?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I've been analyzing the patterns in the voices. They're not random. They're forming sentences, phrases. I think they're trying to communicate." Rachel's eyes widened. "What are they saying?" Emily took a deep breath. "It's hard to translate, but the gist is this. They're offering us something, knowledge, power, a way to transcend our limitations." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. "And the cost?" Emily shook her head. "That's the part I haven't figured out yet. But if the crew of the Eclipse debated accepting, then we should tread carefully. Whatever these beings are, they're playing a long game." Rachel nodded, her expression grim. "We'll figure it out, but we need to be ready for anything." As Emily left, Rachel stared out the window at the stars. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but also dangers. The eclipse had brought them face to face with both. What happened next would define not just their future, but the future of humanity itself. The year was 3027, and humanity had spread far beyond Earth. The old blue planet was now a distant memory, a place spoken of in history books and bedtime stories. People lived on dozens of planets, moons, and space stations scattered across the galaxy. Empires had risen and fallen, alliances had been forged and broken, and the universe felt vast and unpredictable. But even in this age of advanced technology and endless possibilities, there were still mysteries that baffled everyone. On a quiet day in orbit around Epsilon 9, one of the oldest human colonies, something strange happened. A ship appeared out of nowhere. It wasn't just any ship, it was an Earth vessel, a relic from centuries past. The ship floated silently in the cold vacuum of space, its battered hull glinting faintly under the light of a nearby star. No one could believe their eyes. This was impossible. Ships like this hadn't been seen in over 500 years. Commander. Rachel Hayes stood on the bridge of her patrol ship, staring at the readings on her console. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her sharp green eyes scanned the data with intense focus. She had spent most of her life serving in the fleet, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The object before them matched the description of an old Earth cargo hauler called the Eclipse. Records showed it had departed Sol system centuries ago, never to return. Yet here it was, drifting as if time itself had forgotten about it. Rachel turned to her crew. "What do we know?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant James Parker, a young officer with a nervous habit of tapping his fingers against his leg, glanced up from his station. "It's definitely the Eclipse out, Commander. The registry matches and the design is unmistakable, but—" He hesitated, glancing at the screen again. "There's no power signature, no life signs, nothing." Rachel frowned. "Send out a communication signal. Let's see if anyone responds. James nodded and began typing commands into his console. Seconds passed, then minutes. The silence on the bridge grew heavier with each passing moment. Finally, James shook his head. "Nothing, Commander, no response." Rachel crossed her arms, thinking. "Prepare a boarding party. We need to check it out." An hour later, Rachel led a small team aboard the Eclipse. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. The smell of stale air hit them, immediately, thick and musty, like the ship had been sealed shut for centuries. The walls were scarred with dents and scratches, evidence of battles fought long ago. Dust covered every surface, and the floor creaked under their boots as they moved deeper inside. "This place feels wrong," muttered Lieutenant Sarah Bennett, a tall woman with short blonde hair. She held her weapon tightly, her eyes darting nervously around the corridor. "It's like it's been abandoned for hundreds of years, but—" She trailed off, unable to finish her thought. "But what?" Rachel asked, turning to look at her. Sarah hesitated. "It's hard to explain. It's like I can feel something watching us." Rachel didn't dismiss Sarah's words. She felt it too, a strange unease, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck. Still, they pressed on, moving carefully through the ship. Every step revealed more clues about what might have happened here. In the crew quarters, personal belongings lay untouched. Photos of smiling families, clothes hanging in closets, books stacked neatly on shelves. It was as if the crew had vanished without warning. In the mess hall, trays of food sat on tables, half-eaten meals frozen in time. Rachel picked up a fork, examining it closely. The metal was tarnished, but the food looked almost fresh, preserved by the vacuum of space. Whoever had eaten here had done so recently, or so it seemed. Time aboard the Eclipse didn't make sense. As they explored further, the team noticed something else, a faint hum. At first, it was barely audible, like the distant buzz of machinery. But the deeper they went, the louder it became. It resonated through the walls, vibrating in their chests. It wasn't just a sound, it felt alive, pulsing with energy. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, clutching her weapon tighter. "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But we need to find out." They followed the source of the hum to the engine room. The massive chamber was filled with twisted metal and shattered equipment, evidence of some catastrophic event. In the center of the chaos stood a glowing sphere, hovering silently in mid-air. Its light pulsed rhythmically, matching the hum that filled the room. Rachel approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. "Stay back," she ordered, raising a hand to stop the others. "We don't know what this is." But the sphere didn't react. It simply hovered there, radiating warmth and energy. Rachel reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against its surface. For a brief moment, she saw flashes of images, faces, voices, places she didn't recognize. Then, as quickly as it started, the vision ended, leaving her disoriented and breathless. "Commander!" Sarah called out, snapping Rachel back to reality. "Are you okay?" Rachel nodded, stepping away from the sphere. "I'm fine. Let's get out of here." Back on their patrol ship, the team debriefed. Everyone agreed. The Eclipse was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. It was as if the ship existed outside the flow of time, untouched by the centuries that had passed since its disappearance. But the real mystery was the crew. Where had they gone? And why had the ship returned now, after all these years? News of the discovery spread quickly. By the time Rachel returned to Epsilon 9, the entire colony was buzzing with rumors. Some people believed the Eclipse was a ghost ship, cursed and haunted by the spirits of its lost crew. Others thought it was a message sent by some unknown force to warn humanity of impending danger. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. The reappearance of the eclipse had shaken everyone to their core. As Rachel stepped off the shuttle and onto the station's docking bay, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface of a much larger mystery. Something was coming, something big. And the eclipse was just the beginning.